Shabbat Shalom. This week our Torah portion is Pinchas. And our Torah portion this week is out of the book of Numbers, chapter 25, verse 10 through 30, verse 1. And now, who was Pinchas? Well, Pinchas, or some know him as the name Phinehas, was the son of Eleazar and the grandson of Aaron. Now, Pinchas, also known to some as Phinehas, was the Israelite who killed one of his own Israelites for having an intimate relationship with a Midianite woman. But this was all in for good reason. Now, in Pinchas' zeal, in his zeal for Yahweh, he believed that he was giving due judgment as a loyal and obedient servant to Yahweh. Now, he killed his fellow Israelite for worshiping idols rather than the children of Israel's true creator and the world's true creator, the one and only Yahweh. So Eleazar's son, Phinehas, was in accord with Yahweh's heart and mind, as he felt this same jealousy that Yahweh felt, and we all know that Yahweh is a jealous God. So as he made expiation for them, Phinehas, he was given divine protection, and he also was elevated, raised to become, at this point, a high priest. Now why? Why was this? It was because he saw all the evil and thought to do as much good as there was evil being done instead. So we can learn a big lesson from his actions. Now, just as today that the world is moving farther and farther away from Yahweh, so too should his followers, his true followers, give much more light and spread much more light of Yeshua into the world. So as the darkness prevails, so should the light, that light in the light of men, which is Yeshua, the true gospel being spread around the world. So you remember that next time. That even though you see more and more hate and just aggression in this world, that so too there is love somewhere, even more, and more light in this world somewhere. Because we know that Yahweh is above any and everything. So Eleazar's son Phinehas, we see, was elevated as this high priest. And now, as the men of the children of Israel had in fact been fornicating with the Midianite woman, and defiling themselves and trespassing against Yahweh, and instead serving the pagan idols. Let me pause right there and ask you this. Because you've probably thought about this when you've come across this before, this Torah portion before. I'm going to say it. So why didn't Moses kill them? Why was it Phinehas who was the one to step up and do this? But I want you to remember this, that Moses' wife, Zipporah, was also a Midianite. She was one of the people that Yahweh said and had this command to go out and kill. So now what could or would you do in that situation? And this led, I believe, to Phinehas taking the lead. Now, as Israel broke the Sinaitic covenant, all the leads of the children of Israel, or the heads, are publicly then impaled because of this. Because just as a watchman, they too were responsible for warning the people. But they too were also in charge of all of their own ways. So first they had to get their self in order to teach the flock and congregation. But Moses then intervened and had them only slain the guilty, not the innocent heads of these people, the children of Israel. Now, because of the Midianites' trickery and the affair of Peor, Yahweh commands Israel to defeat the Midians. Now, after this, and after the plague, that was brought against the children of Israel from Yahweh's command, Yahweh commands Moses and Aaron's son Eleazar to then take a census, a second census, as being necessary for determining the allotment of the land of Canaan, the promised land. And while this happened, the Levites were being counted separately. Now, each tribe received land or territory by the size of their group, but the land or the geographical area was determined by casting lots. In other words, by getting a divine word and say-so from Yahweh. Now, the clans are the family houses, were the family houses in the tribes. Now, all of this was done after the wilderness generation had all passed away, as Yahweh promised that he would fulfill this. Now, the account of Zelophehad's daughters. Now, in this account, and for their father's inheritance, it was given to them because Yahweh does not want the ancestral lands taken away or isolated from their original families and or tribes. Now, a little point on this is Rashi states that the eyes of the daughters had seen what the eyes of Moshe did not see. Now, what do I think about this? I think that Yahweh had put this story in here for us who grew too complacent to revive our thoughts and ways, to see the ways of our thinking renewed, just as like when we become followers of Yeshua and accept him, we become new. We have a new spirit and a new heart put into us. And I ask you this. Actually, let me make a point like this and show an example of what I think this is referenced to in a modern world as today. How many of you go to the bank and you see your bank teller as just a banker, not a person, and you forget that they are real people with real problems and with real feelings too? And just like us, they go through the emotions. You forget that. Now, most people wouldn't realize it until they have an example like this. When one day you go to the grocery store and you see them, this bank teller who you probably don't really even know their name. But when you see them, you're probably in line checking out and you see them in line at the front checking out. And you see a commotion going on or a situation happening that's stalling up the line. And you look over and see what's going on. And you see that this bank teller is all of a sudden having an issue paying for their items because their EBT card just got declined. Think about this. So your situation was you thought these bank tellers were just bankers. They had money. They do whatever and nothing's going to be wrong. But you see that they were struggling just as we are in the world. They had money problems too. Just because they worked at a bank didn't mean that the bank worked for them. So them too were just working at a job trying to get by. And I think that the recount of the situation with Zelophehad's daughters is to remind us not to forget that all people are people and need us too sometimes and need us to help them. And we need to remember that they too suffer in love and are just like us. So the next time you see someone, go ahead and ask them how they are really doing instead of just asking them how they are. Do you see the difference? How are you really doing? What's really going on with you? I want to take time to know if you need something, if there's something I can help you with, if there's a problem you have going on, maybe I have an answer or solution for it. I don't just want to walk by and just make trivial talk just to say, hey, how's things? Okay, bye. Hey, how are you? What you been up to? Oh, okay, good, bye. Instead, have your heart reach out to their heart, as in a way that we are supposed to follow by Torah, and see what their needs are. Know the person. Do you really know these people? Matter of fact, that's another good thing for us. Do you really spend time with Yahweh, Yeshua? Do you really pray constantly? Do you give praise and worship? Do you run to Yahweh for advice? And not just for selfish gain, but for gain of helping others, helping the fellowship, bringing more souls to the truth. Now in Numbers 27 verse 12, we start to see the clarification that this is now Moshe's time to rest. And why is this? Because of the water from the rock situation that he did when he defied Yahweh's command and instructions. Now, I find it very wonderful how Moses had seen the burning bush when he was 40 years old. And now, parallel to that, he also led the children of Israel into the wilderness for how many years? That's right, 40 years. So you could see the parallel right there. Now, not only that, but Moses' name means water. And now, in parallel to that, the reason that Yahweh will not let Moshe enter into the promised land is because of the water incident at the rock. So you see that when Moshe was rescued from the water, he too was rescued under the protection of Yahweh. So it was water that Yahweh used to save him, but it was also water that will be the demise for Moshe not entering into the promised land. So it will be his death because he defied Yahweh. Now, later on we see that Moshe transfers his power to Joshua. And it's really funny with this because he was told to transfer it to Joshua, and I'm pretty sure Moshe, he was thinking that he was going to transfer his power to his sons. But it wasn't that way because Yahweh knows everybody's heart and he has a mission for everybody if we keep in line with his will. Now in Luke chapter 6 verse 40, it says that a pupil is not above his teacher, but everyone after he has been trained will be like his teacher. So we see that Joshua, or we could say Yeshua as his name is in Hebrew, had the greatness and training of Moshe as he transferred his power to Joshua. But the reason that Joshua was so great as a leader was because he also had seen the mistakes that Moses and Aaron made. And he, with all his wisdom and training, stood clear of all wrongdoings that he observed. Now remember that Moses asked for a leader that would take them out and bring them in. Now, what is this referring to, this take them out and bring them in? Now, to lead them into battle and to take them safe upon returning and to keep them safe upon returning. But Joshua must pass all actions by the priest first, who would refer to Yahweh's divine answer through the use of the Urim and Thummim, which, as we see today, was most likely with a yes or no answer. Now, Joshua, a true leader, as Anu Ezel states, who truly leads his people, would raise them onto his level. He does not trail behind them because he will be dragged down by their vices, by their own low level, and by their sins and actions. Now, he must lead them ahead and never fall to their level. Now, a true leader goes ahead and teaches the way of Adonai, the Lord, even if it's against the populace and most obvious thing to do to please the masses. In other words, it's most like these Christian pastors and such do today, where they constantly, and I know when I was younger, I used to listen to them and think that everything was right, but because they would say things that, you know, they sound good to you. They're basically tickling your ears to make you hear things, but the stuff they're saying it's not conducive to having a true relationship to Yahweh. So we see that it's basically a snake oil salesman. They're saying things to pull you in, but the stuff is meaningless. It's not there. So we see that at the end of Pinchas, it ends with Yahweh giving a review of the annual calendar for completing Yahweh's instructions for entering into the promised land of Canaan, following up the calendar given in the book of Leviticus, with instructions on the animals to be used and the specific sacrifices for all the given occasions and feast days and whatnot. Now, notice this. This calendar uses the number 7 a lot throughout it. I want you to think about that as you go about this week and study on that throughout it. Now, as in our half-Torah portion, we are here, and as we are here, we are learning about Elijah, who was one of Israel's greatest prophets, who was living during the reign of King Ahab, as well as his wife, which I know you guys remember and always hear about the Jezebel spirit. Well, this was his wife, Jezebel. Now, throughout Elijah's flight, Yahweh was with him, picking him up and leading and guiding him where he was needed, while being in his protection all the way through. Now, why was he fleeing? Because Jezebel sent word through one of her messengers to Elijah, telling him and saying, "So may the gods do to me and more. Also, if I do not make your life as the life of one of them by tomorrow." Now, who was Jezebel referring to when she said one of them? Now they are the prophets of Baal, who failed to have their false god Baal consume the offering in 1 Kings chapter 18 account. Now, these are the prophets that were for Baal, that Elijah commanded to have killed, and then he killed at Vashti-Kazan. Now, in Numbers chapter 19, verse 5, there is a great takeaway from this portion. So we see that as Elijah is fleeing for his life, his high, that suddenly an angel of Adonai appears to Elijah and supplies for his needs and tells him where to go and where to get and how to get there safely. Now, the takeaway is this, that, well, in the book of Revelation, we clearly read that how Satan will constantly seek to destroy the true followers of Yeshua, those that will stay loyal, just as Elijah, and not bow down to how Satan are the gods of the land. But just as he, Yahweh, protected and supplied for Elijah and took him to a place of safety, so too will Yahweh once again take his true followers to a place of safety all along, while, just as he did for Elijah, providing for them, while the enemy seeks to kill them in the final days that we are currently taking place and going through in right now. Now, not only that, but get this. In Numbers chapter 19, verse 9, there is a big gem hidden here from Yahweh as a blessing that is revealed to those who have Yahweh given insight and been blessed with this. So we see that Elijah went for 40 days and for 40 nights to Horeb, the mount of Yahweh, Mount Sinai, where Moshe and the children of Israel had received the 10, what? Commandments, yes. Now I ask you, how many days was it that Yeshua was in the wilderness for? Ding, 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 ding. That's right, yep. For 40 days. So we see that Elijah was fleeing for 40 days, and Yeshua was in the wilderness for 40 days. But oh wait, you starting to see the parallels and getting your attention now? Now how's about this? So in verse 9, it states that Elijah came to a cave. Remember, a cave. And he rested into it. But now I ask you, where was it that Yeshua was buried? That's right again, in a cave as well. Now get this. So in verse 9, the word of Adonai came to Elijah at the cave and said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" Remember this. The angel said, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" At the cave. But if you remember, we hear this later on again. In an account like this was taking place. Now, where was this account? Where? No other than John chapter 20, verse 11 through 13. And I'm going to read it back for you so you can see this account of the angel speaking. But Miriam was standing at the tomb and was weeping. And while she looked inside the tomb, she saw two angels in white sitting, one at his pillow and one at the foot where the body of Yeshua had been laid. And they were saying to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said to them, "They have taken away my Adonai, and I do not know where they have laid him." So do you see the two parallels right there? It was at a cave, and the angel was speaking to to Elijah at the time, and then now speaking to Miriam at the time. It's an account of a parallel situation going on right there. Now, just as Moshe passed down his power, so too is Elijah training Elisha to receive his power. Just like when Yeshua left and he passed down his power to us through the Ruach HaKodesh, the Holy Spirit, so we could receive it. So these are three accounts, beginning, middle, and end. Now, as we're on the subject of Yeshua, as in for our gospel portion, I would like to first speak of the parable of the tenants. Did you know that this parable was speaking about the former prophets of Yahweh and also about Yeshua as the main focal point? Now, who is the son in this parable? And the servants of the kings? Well, the son is Yeshua. And the servants of the king were the former prophets or the prophets, the true servants of Yahweh. Did you also know that Yeshua was telling in the future prediction of his crucifixion and death as well? It also foretells of a judgment in the future for all of us today, that if we reject Yeshua, who is our Messiah and our cornerstone, that Yahweh, the Father, the Abba, will avenge Yeshua's death and our rejection of him with his vengeance, also known as the day of the Lord, and or the tribulation. And as for Yeshua's reaction to being asked about paying taxes to Caesar, well, it isn't my belief that in our present day that Yeshua is certainly saying to do what's just in the land and pay your taxes. But we are also not to neglect Yahweh. So Yeshua said to give to Caesar what is his, but also give to Yahweh what is his. So you pay your taxes when you pay your taxes, but you are supposed to praise and worship Yahweh and study his word on a daily, throughout the day. So do you see what I'm saying? As many people, even atheists, even pay their taxes, those that are called themselves true followers and believers of Yahweh, the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the Messiah Yeshua, we too should be showing this and wanting to study and love him and praise him and worship him daily throughout the day, just as we are commanded to do. Now, and I'm not just talking like how when you're in a Christian church, most Christians, they go to church one day a week and maybe spend an hour a day in church, and that's what they consider praying and doing their worship. But they forget about Yahweh throughout the week. And most of the time, even when they're at church, they're worried about what's going on with the game, this game, that game. And they're thinking about, or possibly even watching on their phones with the new media of the world today. But we are also to donate whatever extra monies that we have, or resources, if not money, that we have. Such as, for example, I'll say this. Remember, Yeshua said to them, whose face is on the currency? And they said, Caesar's face. And he said, okay, well, you give to Caesar what is his. So you see that Yahweh, Yeshua, didn't even, he's showing us that as an example, that money's not a thing of his. When he provides for us, he provides in resources and different things, and crops into the land, and blessings such as rain. Because money is a thing of man. And I want to show you an example of when he said to give to Yahweh what we're supposed to do with this. A good example is this. If you have a farm and you have an extra abundance of produce or meat that was provided by Yahweh, you are required to donate to others who are in need and less fortunate. Now, another example is this. Say you have a talent such as being blessed with, let's say, a talented voice. You should donate your voice to singing openly with worship music to Yahweh. Whether you volunteer your times at your fellowships as your music leader, director, or whatever else. Are you starting to get the point of what I'm saying? What you have, you use, because it's a blessing from Yahweh. So if you have extra resources, even if you have extra finances, you should support others that did not have, those that have less and are in need of. It is not about money, but about resources with Yahweh. That is why he said to Caesar, what is his, which is money, and give to Yahweh what is his, worship and helping others, fulfilling the covenants, the laws, living Torah. Now, Yahweh does not think in money, only man does, as I said. But last but not least, Yeshua tells us what is the most important command. And what is that command? Exactly, the Shema, which we are told that we are supposed to announce each and every day. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. And you shall love the Lord your God with all your heart and with all your soul and with all your mind and with all your strength, basically every ounce of you that there is. And we are told to fulfill covenant, we are supposed to recite the Shema every morning and every night. Remember this. Now, I want to close on this. I want you to think about this. So Yahweh led the children of Israel in our Torah portion to Shittim. And what is that Shittim? What is cassia? Now, what is this cassia? Remember, cassia was the wood that they used to build the tabernacle. And now we will have the Aaronic blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May the Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom. This has been a weekly Messianic Torah portion from Following Yeshua Ministries. For more information or for help, please visit www.followyeshuanow.com. Shabbat Shalom.